Hey everybody, Danielle Hargenrader here. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Today I am so thrilled to bring you the amazing Shawn Shepheard. And before we get started, I'm going to read you his bio and we're going to get right into the good stuff. So Shawn Shepheard hosts the Sugar-Free Shawn Show, where he brings in experts to share their best advice on living well with or without diabetes. He travels the world helping healthcare providers better serve their diabetic patients. He speaks to those living with diabetes and shares his journey and his commitment to live happy and well in the hopes that he will inspire just one more person to embrace the disease rather than feel victimized by it, which I love, by the way. Shawn gives keynote addresses and hosts workshops for corporations, governmental agencies, and healthcare organizations all over the world. He also plays hockey every chance he gets. He leads advocates in getting coverage of insulin pumps and test strips in provinces across the country. We're talking Canada. And he writes about all of it on his blog at sugarfreeshawn.com. Through his TV show and live speaking engagements, you'll learn how to live well and happy with diabetes and then spread the love to those who need it most. Love all of that. How are you today, Shawn? Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing very well. And just for anybody out there who's worried about the links, I'm going to have links to all Shawn's stuff under this, so don't worry about missing all the websites that I mentioned and all things like that. So, Shawn, if you would be so kind as to share with us, let's hear about your diabetes story. Let's start at the beginning and tell us about your diagnosis and kind of the path you traveled to from then till now.
Yeah, my life changed forever on Christmas Day 1997. So at age 30, and I was engaged to be married, that's when I found out that I was living with type 1 diabetes. And I was working in corporate world. I was a recruiter, and I was doing a lot of traveling just before Christmas that year, and I knew something was wrong. Typical symptoms: drinking lots of water, and at that time I didn't know, a lot of pop as well. Using the washroom, drinking a lot, not sleeping through the night. Engaged to be married, and on Christmas Eve I drove from my hometown in Ottawa. It's about a 5-hour drive to Toronto to spend Christmas with my fiance and her family. And they knew from the phone calls that something was wrong. And my mother-in-law is a nurse, and I remember waking up on Christmas morning, and I was the first one up in the house with my mother-in-law, and I asked her, I'm like, what's going on? And that was the first time I even heard diabetes from her, about my situation. And she says, well, it might be diabetes. And her husband was diagnosed with type 2 about 6 months previous. And ironically, I was asking him about, how often do you have to test your blood, and doesn't that hurt? And so we tested my blood right there. I said, can we test it? And I didn't know what it meant. So we're metric here. So it was 23.1. So times that by 17.
Yeah.
To get the US. It's high. It was high. And went immediately to the hospital, and doctor said, you're going to be on injections the rest of your life. Here's all the complications. And I remember just sitting there, and I'm a bit flippant sometimes, but it was a big shock, and I was just like, well, Merry Christmas to you too, and life changed forever, but for a lot of good ways as well on Christmas Day 97.
Yeah, wow. I actually, guys, I didn't even realize that. So that's a lot to take in. You're engaged to be married. It's Christmas Day, and you just actually happen to have somebody that has a glucometer at their home, and you get to just be sitting in the comfort of your own home and finding that out. For me, I got taken to the doctor's office and things like that. But that's a huge shock. I can't even imagine. But I guess it's nice that your mother-in-law's a nurse and had the wherewithal to be able to tell you that, so it didn't get worse, or God forbid anything else happened. So obviously you were already 30 years old, as you said. So unlike someone like myself who was 8, almost 9 years old, you had an amazing kind of opportunity that you were already an adult. And so what got you into what you're doing now? What kind of pushed you in that direction? So you said you were a recruiter.
Yeah, so I mean, the gift of diabetes was when I went back home after the holidays and where I worked in Ottawa. Ironically, I would teach other people and executives. I did a lot of outplacement with executives about, hey, if sometimes the best thing that can happen is when you lose your job and it gives you time to step back and look at the big picture. I needed to do that for myself as well. And we also have Huntington's disease run in our family, and my mom and her four siblings all passed away of it, and it's a genetic disease. So when you put that with the diabetes, the positive spin for me was, we often hear live every day to the fullest, and but for me now it was real. It was real. There's one diagnosis and a high chance for another one, and I was a student of my own lessons. I went to the libraries on the weekends and after work and really wrote out what I wanted in all areas of my life. And not surprisingly, didn't involve a corporate recruiting job.
Surprise!
And I think the hardest part is, so I left the recruiting job, I left the corporate world. The president of the company, ironically, was also type 1. And he totally got it, and he said, I totally understand it and support you. Can you give me 3 months so we can hire somebody and train? And so it was a really, really positive exit. And I just started designing my dream life of all the cool things that I would love to do, and then went after them. Was it easy? No. My favorite quote is, and it's been credited to a few people, but I thought it was Peter Drucker, who said the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Absolutely.
So I had to create that first in my mind, and I think that's clear for anybody, if you're living with diabetes or not, is get really clear on what you want and why you want it, and then go for it.
Yeah, you just so many things. One thing that you said, which I totally have to agree with, but it took me a lot longer to embrace that, was that you said the gift of diabetes. And I spent a lot of years, more than 10 years, thinking that diabetes was a curse, thinking that it was, what did I do to deserve this? Was I a bad person in a previous lifetime? All this inner contemplation about why do I have this pity party, So it's really amazing, and I applaud you for having the wherewithal to kind of just dive right in with that and embrace it. Not only accept it, but because I think that there's a couple steps. It's understanding, and then it's accepting, and then it's embracing. But you kind of just like dove right into embracing it and saying, I'm going to design the life that I want, which I'm a huge fan of. I'm a huge proponent of that. And you sat down and you actually took pen to paper, which is another thing that I teach people all the time, and you wrote it down, because it's so easy for things to get lost rattling around in our heads. We want this, we want that. But when we put it on paper and we're able to pick up that paper and look at it on a day-to-day basis, it really just solidifies everything and allows us to move forward, even if we're not necessarily having an exact plan.
Yeah.
Just having it out on the paper allows us to have that, that clarity instead of that looping around over and over in our brain. So that's amazing. I mean, you are an inspiration right off the bat. So and I would love to hear more about your transition out, because I'm sure there are a lot of adults out there who were diagnosed as adults that are still very much struggling with the diagnosis, whether it was yesterday or 10 years ago, and they're still maybe in a job that they're not in love with, or, and they would like to be a little bit more involved with diabetes. Because for me, I found that the more I get involved with helping other people with their diabetes, the more it helps me feel better about my diabetes. So it really is an amazing, a beautiful circle that we keep going in, because it helps me, it helps you, and it helps others. So talk a little bit about that. Maybe someone out there that wants to get more involved and is an adult and is still struggling.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, when you make some pretty big life decisions, so when I decided to leave that corporate job and I'm engaged to be married and so on, the people closest to me, and they were coming from a good place, thought I was crazy. Like, why would you leave a good job? Why would you leave a good job with health benefits? Why would you? And I've heard so many people over the years saying, well, just get a job so you can get benefits. And so I think sometimes whenever we make any changes in our life, I always say you have to have a thick skin to lead the life of your dreams. And often they're coming from a great place. So I don't, the people closest to you want the best for you. But that was a big struggle too, of making a lot of these changes and having pretty well most of the people go, you're crazy. So
Yeah.
as far as getting involved and meeting other people, for me it was different because there's a lot of diabetes resources and camps and stuff for kids, and so, but I was 30, so it wasn't quite there. And then there was a lot of things for, I went to some Canadian Diabetes Association meetings, but there were a lot of type 2s that were much older than me, and I just couldn't find the right fit of different groups. So I just kept trying. I mean, it's similar to you probably didn't marry your very first date in your life, right?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to keep looking. And that's like the number one tip is find other people that live with diabetes that get you. I know the event that we were just at in Vegas that somebody had mentioned, go out to the walks, go out to just get involved, because guess what? That's where you're going to meet other people living with it. And when I say the gift of diabetes, the people that I've met on my journey in the last 16 and a half years have been phenomenal and become like some of my best friends. And like I can't imagine my life without them. So if you're alone, get out there and meet people. And if you live in a remote area, there's this thing called the internet. There's so many online groups that are there to support you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I actually just gave a group coaching call on this yesterday about the incredible power of support. And I feel like a lot of us, it's a human condition almost, that we feel like when we need help or we feel like we need to ask for help, it's like us being weak. Whereas I truly believe that human beings are meant to be communal. We're meant to be part of a community, even back to like prehistoric. It's like we survived on our own, like hunting stuff, and then we lived to like 20. But it wasn't until we started like creating civilizations and coming together, realizing we could do so much more and accomplish so much more. And now we have, like you said, the diabetes online community. It doesn't matter what age you are, what type of diabetes you have. There are 100 or more communities out there that are with open arms, that are ready to bring you in and pull you in, and you can post and people will post back, and it's not just going to be meaningless conversation. You're going to get solutions or suggestions or advice or even just the ability to vent. So I completely agree, and specifically what you said about taking the action. If you don't take the action to do that, most likely diabetic people aren't just going to fall into your lap, because for me, like I went, I probably didn't meet another diabetic person until I was in my mid-20s, and I got diagnosed at between 8 and 9. So it's like until I actually took and came out of my shell, because I closed myself into this shell. I'm alone. Nobody understands what I'm going through. This is, my struggle, and I don't want to burden anybody with my problems. All of these beliefs that I had that were not serving me, not only were they not serving me, but they just weren't true. And I was just making up this story and not taking any action to kind of make that happen. So, yeah, I couldn't agree any more with what you said. Such great advice. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your online, your sugarfreeshawn.com. Tell us about I know you just started a new series, so tell us a little bit about that and what you're up to.
Yeah, so Sugar Free Shawn, the Sugar Free Shawn Show. First of all, the name Sugar Free Shawn actually was just kind of poking fun at diabetes, but my last name is Shepheard, and there's way too many vowels in my last name that nobody can spell it right, including probably some of my family members. So Sugar Free Shawn was just way easier. So yeah, sugarfreeshawn, SHAWN.com. The show really was inspired by, like you said, there's not a master plan. One of my other lives is I do a lot of corporate training. I was working for Success TV in New York, and then we did a lot of corporate events in Canada that we simulcast around the world with business leaders. And so all of that was kind of percolating. And then I was speaking at diabetes events, and I thought, how can we reach more people? And I spoke at this one event in the middle of, the prairies of Canada. And the gentleman that was sitting beside me, it was like a dinner event. I asked him where he lived, and he said that he drove 5 hours to get there. And I was like, 5 hours to come to this event? And I said, are you staying the night? And he says, no, I'm driving right back home after. So I was like, 10 hours of driving? And then he looked at me and he said, yeah, you better be good. So I thought of him and how many people are remote. And then the other thing that really got me going was my diabetes educator here in Toronto. She's a nurse, and she saw me speak at an event, and she came up to me after and said, I show your videos to a lot of my patients in my office. And I was like, what video? What are you talking about? And I used to do corporate training videos. They're still online with Success TV in New York. And so I asked her, I said, but they're not about diabetes. She goes, it doesn't matter. I just want to show people that somebody that's happy living the life of their dreams, living with diabetes. And so when you put all of those experiences together, and I play hockey with a bunch of guys that are in TV, we came up with the Sugar-Free Shawn Show, and let's do little episodes profiling other people living well with diabetes, and let's show it to the world. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can watch it and you can connect. And if you're not comfortable, in a group talking, you can watch the show. And so it was just kind of this wild idea. All of the money came out of my pocket and my friends' goodwill to put it together. And now they're shown in clinics right across Canada, and we've got people watching from all around the world. And they're just fun, goofy little episodes, but any little thing that we can do, if it's watching a video, if it's reading the blog, or talking to others that can help, is a good thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's so great that so that you're showing the videos. And my endocrinologist sometimes shows videos and she has my card and she gives people my website. And I say that's great, because that's kind of what we all want to do. Is like you said, and obviously you're not the only one doing it, because that's what this whole interview series is about. That's what it was born of, is that, look, if you're at my site and you're not necessarily inspired by me, no problem. Here's a whole slew of other people, different ages, sexes, backgrounds, diagnosis dates, types of diabetes. I don't care, but there's somebody here that you're going to connect to, and there's somebody out there. So I want to provide as many examples of what I refer to as diabetes dominators as possible. And that's the thing, diabetes dominator doesn't have to be this big scary thing. It's just, the point is exactly what you said in your bio, or that I said, is that you don't feel victimized by the disease. You're in charge, and of course you can't control diabetes to any particular T, but you can control your actions, and you can control the way you feel about it almost all of the time. So it's exactly what you said, and what you did, obviously inspired a whole bunch of other people, including myself, to start doing that. So, and that's the whole thing. It's this beautiful thing that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And like you said, you don't have to do this. You can just sit back and watch them, because that's why we do this, so that people can find that inspiration wherever it is that they may find it. So
your level of involvement's up to you, and that's what I love about the diabetes community, is that it's not this competitive, oh, my thing, your like. No, we're all in this together.
Yep.
We're all out there to support each other, and I'm trying to bring a lot of the lessons that I bring from corporate training and executive coaching to the diabetes world and give it away for free, because we have enough bills. We don't need any more bills.
That's exactly what I do too. That's why everything I do is free. I agree. I want, I do coach people, but the one of the main reasons I do this is because not everybody can afford my coaching. But if that's the case, I still want you to have access to almost all of the information that I give away. So I want to give as much away, and I agree. That's 100%. Awesome.
Well, and the beautiful thing, like I see in the background, like all the fitness, I love you got way more, you have like 5 different kettlebells. I love it. But you're bringing things that you love, that's part of Danielle, and beyond diabetes, and bringing it to living with diabetes. And I love that, because honestly, when I'm around a lot of other people living with diabetes, we actually don't talk about diabetes that much.
No, it's true.
We all have other interests, and I think that's the beautiful thing about it, that it's whatever makes your heart sing, you put that first, and then the diabetes and taking care of that is really fueled by what makes your heart sing.
That's 100% true. Follow your passion. I mean, I don't care what your passion is, and then some people say, well, I don't know what it is. Well, guess what? Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a reason for being here. Even if you don't know what it is, just kind of have to dabble around and find what it is. But mostly you do know, even if you think it's something that maybe no one else wants. I was at a seminar once, and some guy made like $1 million off of teaching other people to teach their horses how to tap dance. Mm-hmm. So my point is this: if you think whatever you're good at is not, trust me, there's a whole many people out there that want to hear what you have to say. So even if you're not teaching other people, just follow your passion. I don't care if it's knitting or horse tap dancing or hula hooping, or it doesn't matter. It's the point is that don't diminish your passion because you don't think it's important, because it is. It's important because it makes you happy, and that's kind of the end goal. And when you're happy, like you said, your ability to make those better choices with diabetes just kind of flows together. So yeah.
And I couldn't agree. Like I play not very well, but play hockey twice a week, and it also makes me a lot happier. And I remember coaching an executive a couple years ago, and she was really busy and stressed and a whole bunch of things. And one of the first action steps I asked her, because she kept telling me, kept coming up, that she loved to dance, and she had a whole dance background before she got into corporate. And I asked her, when was the last time you danced? And she's like, I don't even remember. Oh. And I'm like, okay, so your homework is to find like a dance class or something that you could do regularly. And she laughed at me, and she was like, I'm paying you and you're telling me to take a dance class? But she did. And she had no idea how much that changed every area of her life. And I mean, we've joked about that, because she thought, oh, I was nuts at first for saying that, but how that one change. So even if it's something that you don't get paid for, if you love doing it, make time for it.
I agree. Perfect advice. Excellent advice. And so speaking of advice, I'm going to now ask you to give us a little bit more advice. So I always ask everybody that I interview to give the top 3, and I like them to be actionable, but even if they are a little bit, heady, what are the top 3 things that you would tell any and all diabetics watching out there, or people with diabetes, so I can be PC, to kind of like just help them get out of a rut if they're in a rut or struggling or feeling like helpless or hopeless, like some of us have. I know I used to, and I know a lot of us out there feel. So what do you think? What does sugar-free Shawn think?
So my top 3 would be, number 1, what we're just talking about, like find your community. You don't have to do this alone. If it's local walks or chapters or friends or online, life is way more fun when it's experienced with others and shared with others. Pictures on Facebook, when somebody's on vacation, they just take the picture of the beach, makes me sad. I want to see people in it. I want to see your friends and your family and your kids. So that would be number 1, is you don't have to do it alone. Find your community and you'll be happier too. Number 2 is what I talked about a little bit too, is figure out what you want. And this is not just people with diabetes, is figure out what you want in all areas of your life, from families, friends, to hobbies, to work, to health. Figure out what you want, because I have a lot of my friends that tease me going, oh, you're so lucky and you don't have to work and you get to golf on Monday afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, well, I actually play half as much as you on Saturday and there's nobody on the course. But that took a lot of work, because I invested a lot of time on figuring out what I want. Highly, 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 highly recommend spending some time on getting clear on what exactly you want. And then the third one is only after you've done number 2 now, is why do you want what you want? Because often, people will put together vision boards and all of this, or they see a movie or whatever, and they'll put like cars and trips. And maybe even if they get it, it might be a shallow victory if you don't have strong reasons why. I want to live long and healthy because my wife and I, we want to do all the dreams that we had before I was diagnosed are the same. That's my why. And when you attach your what and your why, it's so powerful. So that would be my top 3.
Awesome. And thank you so much for sharing those because I completely agree. I teach that too about your why, and often, and I have tons of vision boards as well, but what you said, it is often or always a means to an end. And I do coach people, and I go through this with them, and I ask them that question. I say, well, what would make you happy? And they say this, and I say why. And they say this, and I say why. Until at the end, it almost always comes out to be what you said is love. Because you say your wife is your why, and you and your wife want to do these things. It's because we all inherently want to feel loved and accepted, and we also want to be able to freely give love without feeling like it's going to be rejected. And I think, and I know it sounds a little woo-woo, and we talked about this before, but I think it all circles around love. And about the fact that it's connection. It's connection with other people, like you said, that community. And even if that's not your why right now and you're not sure if it is, just, kind of think about it and just get out there in a community and see if you can start spreading a little more love and accepting a little more love, because a lot of times we have a hard time accepting it, even when people are giving it. So,
and to make time for it. I mean, I go on a lot of coffee dates, and people, they're in a bad relationship, they're in a bad career, whatever, and I always tell them, figure out what you want. Figure out what you want and do, there's lots of exercises, and then we'll have another coffee date. Most people will email me like 2 weeks later, hey, I'm ready for coffee, and I'll say, hey, have you done that work on, if Life Wheel or a whole bunch of other tools? And often they'll say no. And then my next question is always, what did you do last night? Oh, well, the 2-hour Dancing to the Stars. Nothing wrong with Dancing with the Stars, but you need to make time for you and what you want, or nothing will change.
Yep, perfect. I mean, that couldn't be a better kind of bringing it to a close. That's the bottom line. You're worth it. You're worth the time that you would need to put in. You're worth the effort. And even if you don't believe it right now, just put it forth anyway. I'm sure you've done something, even maybe it is your job that you don't necessarily believe is worth the time. Do it anyway, and eventually I believe that we all come around to realize that we are our own best project and we are our own best investment, and everything that we can do for ourselves then just starts radiating out into all our relationships and everything else. So it's just an amazing kind of snowball effect of love. So,
totally agree.
So is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like to tell us? I'm going to put links under to Shawn's stuff. He just started a little, is it going to be weekly?
Every Wednesday, Life is Sweet, and they're little tips on how to live your sweet life, and they're going to be every Wednesday in less than 3 minutes, promise.
Perfect. See, that's so easy to consume. There's no excuse. All right, so cool. So yeah, I'm going to put links, Life is Sweet, sugarfreeshawn.com. So Shawn, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. It's been my pleasure, and you're a ray of sunshine.
Well, thank you, and so are you, and anytime. I had a great time.
All right, awesome. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.